Okay, good morning. We're up to Siman Reish Yud Aleph Sif Hey. So we're working through the halachas of brachos on fruits and vegetables, etc. So says the Machab in Sif Hey, Had the chita v'sa'ira kaidmim. We said yesterday that based on the pasuk of Eretz chita v'sa'ira, that there is a priority, precedence in the order of brachos, and chitim and sa'irim come first, and therefore we make a mezainis before we make any bracha, berpro eitz or berpro adama. So, but says the Mechaba, Had the chita v'sa'ira kaidmim, that which chita and sa'irim come first, dafka kashe osu mehem tavshele pas. That's only if you actually make a cake or you make a bread out of it. Avala kaises chita, if you just chew a bit of a kernel of wheat, Brachos berpro adama, which we said previously, where it's the bracha would be a berpro adama, then eina kodemes lebirchas berpro eitz. Then it doesn't have the same priority, and it does not get in there before bore pri ha'etz. Let's do the Mishnah Berurah on that. Tavshil opas. Sif Koton Chavov says the Mishnah Berurah v'heim kodmim l'shari minim af im heim chavivim etz l'yoser. So when it comes to chitim and sa'irim, they get in there before other things, fruit and vegetable, even if the fruit and vegetable are chaviv. So for example, you're sitting at a Kiddush on Shabbos morning and there's cake, and there's and then you're planning on having some cake and a bit of fruit, let's say. So really the cake has got to come first, even if they're more chaviv, even if the other items are more chaviv to you. But then the Mechaber said, but that's only true if you have it in a cooked form, if you have a cake or bread or something like that, a baked form. But if you're kaises chita, if you're just chewing a piece of grain, a sort of an unprocessed piece of grain, then eina kodemes, says the Mishnah Berurah, eina kodemes ele berpro eitz taktim, and therefore the normal rules would apply, and berpro eitz should come before the bore pri adama, like we said yesterday. Or mashma magen Avram, the dafke in pri eitz chaviv yoser etzloi. That's dafke if the bore pri eitz is more chaviv to you, is more precious to you. Then it will come first, even though it's later in the pasuk. Avalim shnehem chavivim, but if both are chaviv to you, the chita and the berpro eitz, b'shava, then chita kodemes, then the chita would come first because it is earlier on in the pasuk. Ochein, v'bia hagra mashma, the lefi mashma mevur le'el b'sif aleph. That, like we said in the first sif, the heicha she'ein brachos ein shavos lo yazdin and klal bosa min shiva. That when the brachos are not the same, you have to follow the priority of going after the shiva samin in fruit. Du adin hacha, so to here le'azdin and klal bosa mukdum. You don't have to go after the earlier part of the pasuk. And you can choose whether it's the berpro eitz, whether it's the berpro adama of the chitim. It doesn't make a difference. If, however, the chitim is more chaviv to you, then mistama you should make the bracha on that first. The gam sham halacha ki yesh emrim to chaviv kaiden kashmot shekasav nesham, because even then we said that chaviv takes precedence. Okay, good. Let's carry back into the Ramah. Says the Ramah, top line Hagar birchas hamoitzi kaidemes lebirchas beri mnei mezonos. So just like berpro eitz we said comes before berpro adama, and the beri mnei mezonos comes before berpro eitz and berpro adama, etc. Well, so too the bracha of hamoitzi comes before the bracha of mezonos. For kol shekein l'shar brachas, and certainly hamoitzi would therefore come before other brachas. V'afal pisha adova hasheni choshev echaviv olav, even though the second item may be more choshev and chaviv to him, nevertheless the hamoitzi comes first. V'chein yesh ledakdek midivrei hagos ma'ameni b'perek tes u'mismak shehevi atur v'chol bo v'beis Yosef v'shem Rambam. Okay, let's just do the Mishnah Berurah on that. Sif Koton Chav Ches. So Kedem is the brachas ber minim mezonos. The bracha of hamoitzi comes before mezonos. Pirush Kagoin sheyesh shulchan Orach lefonov lechol pas. So you're about to have a meal, and you're going to have a bread meal. You're going to wash and make hamoitzi. For gamreit lechol lachmonias, and there's going to be some cakes and desserts there. The brachos and ber minim mezonos. And we know that we've said this before, that if you're going to have mezonos during a meal, you're not eating these mezonos, these cakes and things, but you're eating them for dessert and not for satiation, and therefore it would require a bracha. The mitzvah is to wash first, and because the bracha of hamoitzi has precedence over the bracha of mezonos. The birchas hamoitzi chashuv, it's more chashuv. V'achar kach yivarich bermnei mezonos ala lachmanios, and then you can make a mezonos on the cakes and whatever you're having. The imari b'shat tafshilin, because if it was not talking about cakes, it was talking about, let's say, quiche, or it's talking about pasta or things like that, then the beloved time of the Brachos HaMotzi chashuva, even without the fact that Brachos HaMotzi is chashuv, tzorich levarich tchila ala pas, v'lifta memeles hatavshil. In any event, you're going to have to make the bracha on bread first, to include what you're going to have in the meal. To yivarich tchila ala tavshil, because if you were to make a bracha of on mezonos on the tavshil, nimtzu gerim bracha shein tzricha, v'asa, you shouldn't be doing that.
He doesn't say that Brachos HaMotzi is pater anyway.
Oh, so that's his point. Yeah, so that no, I think that's exactly his point. He's saying that the Ramah says the Brachos HaMotzi comes before the mezonos. So the Mishnah is saying, well, of course, because anything you're going to have in the meal is exempt anyway.
That's right.
So he's saying we must be talking about these sort of cakes and desserts which you're not eating for satiation, you're having for dessert, which you have to make a bracha for.
So it's going on, but that's a different.
Yeah, no, but he's saying that so the application of this halacha, that the hamoitzi comes first, is because we're talking about stuff where you would have to make a bracha mezonos on it. Yeah. Now, there's a couple of interesting points over here. Well, no, the question. Let's take a look at 20.
Excuse me, can I just
yeah.
If you're saying we have to make a bracha with mezonos on something not going to say, but if you're only having a piece of bread, so you make a motzi on the piece of bread, and a mezonos, and a piece of cake, do you still make a bracha because that's?
Oh, we've had before. We had before. If you have, let's say you went for a Kiddush and you didn't hold back and you are now quite full before you come to Shabbos lunch, you haven't washed, and you're going to go home and you're going to wash. And I remember this, it's Chatos Yani Matzka Yom, as a kid, I remember this thing that happened. And my dad told me to wash, and there was some fruit and I had some orange. He says and it's a halacha, if your whole meal is an orange, then although normally you make a ber pro eights of fruit in a meal, but if that is the meal, then not. So in that situation, but we're talking about a regular meal where you're going to wash and you're going to have various types of foods, and then you're going to have some dessert at the end. If you're eating the dessert not for satiation, but just because you want to end the meal with some dessert, then you make a mezonos on it. On that, says the Ramah, the hamoitzi comes first. So a couple of haras. First is number 22. So im yesh lefonov pas gemura for pas aboba kisnin. So you got in front of you bread and mezonos. Kosova prima godim shafilim reitz likver suda la pas aboba kisnin mikomakum yagdim levar hamoitzi ala pas gemura. Then, in other words, let's say for example, I'm going to have 3 slices of pizza. So therefore I should be washing and making hamoitzi and benching on this pizza. And I've also got some bread. So I want to have, let's say for example, they serve some garlic bread in some pizza stores, right? So in front of me, I've got bread, like some garlic bread. And I've also, garlic bread means regular bread with just butter and garlic on top of it. And I've also got some pizza. So when I wash and make hamoitzi, should I do it on the? Should I make on which comes first? So that's what the Prima Godim saying. Make the hamoitzi first because that has a chashivas. Make the hamoitzi, and that will cover everything else. Don't think that you should make the mezonos first, even though it's a part of kistan, which I'm going to eventually make a birchas hamazon on. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2 is 23. Now I'll tell you where it's very relevant. This is relevant when it comes to Kiddush on Shabbos morning. Because you're going to go wash in a minute and have lunch. But the minhag olam is before you come back from shul and you have some a whiskey and maybe some kichels and or some cake and a coffee, whatever it may be. So the question is, really, you've got in front of you hamoitzi because you're going to wash in a minute, and you've also got mezonos. So what happens then? So take a look at 23. Ulegabi Kiddush Rabbi b'Shabbos b'Boker. With regard to Shabbos morning Kiddush, Kosov b'Shulchan Aruch Harav, Sha'minhag haposhet le'echol minei mesika u'mirkachas kodim asuda. We do have mezonos before the meal. V'lo michud bohen rabbanon kashishoy. because seemingly this violates this halacha. Because if you've got a choice of mazonis and hamoitzi, really your hamoitzi should come first. So how come we're going for the mazonis before the hamoitzi? And yet the Rabbanim Kashishoy, the early Rabbanim, don't protest against this. For taimon v'nimukim imam, and the reasoning is very simple, and it goes according to, it makes sense. Why? Lefi she'ein derech la'ichlum klal b'toich hasuda ela liberei kana. The minig is, when you come back from shul, you're going to have some Kiddush. You eat these foods, whatever you're having for Kiddush, alibere kana, this is on an empty stomach. I don't want to eat them during the meal. I don't want to have the crackers and herring and the rogalach face, but during my Shabbos lunch meal. The minig is to eat this now. Ein b'zemish and bracha shein tzricha. It's not a bracha shein tzricha. A bracha shein tzricha is an unnecessary bracha. This is not unnecessary. I want the kichels and the rogalach and whatever. Now, this is the minig to eat it. This is how you do it. And therefore you're not mechuyev to wash and to have the bread beforehand. You don't have to sort of change the normal order of your eating when it comes just to fit in the brachas. And you don't have to hold back from eating the things that you want to eat now because of the hakdima of the brachas. It's two separate things. Even during the week, sometimes it's quite a normal thing before you wash to eat some things that you're going to eat during the meal, and that. Sometimes the minhag ha'olam is to eat something. I'll give you a good example. You go to the Aviv restaurant. So there, sometimes you have little bits of vegetables on the plate beforehand, and they serve it, and then you'll choose what you want to eat, and then eventually they bring the bread and whatever. But you don't have to hold back from eating these little bits of vegetables beforehand, because the derech ha'olam is to eat some of these things beforehand, until you get to it, and that's like an appetizer or whatever you want to call it. So that's what the Orach HaShulchan is talking about. You can eat these things beforehand. You don't have to hold back from eating them, and then to wash first, and they should be included in the meal. So
that's to wash before an appetizer.
Yeah, if the derech ha'olam is to eat these things before, then you can make a prepared dom on them. They have little sort of bits of carrots and whatever and celery or whatever. So that then, if you're sitting nushing of those things, then you're going to be then choosing, and then in 5-10 minutes time they'll be bringing the food or longer. So you don't have to hold back from that. If the bread is there, I suppose, then you should wash and do that. But he's talking about eating. The derech ha'olam would be eating these things. I think that would be an example of what the Orach HaShulchan is talking about. Okay, let's carry on the Mishnah Berurah. We're up to Chavtes. So this is going on the Ramah. The Ramah says that the bracha of hamoitzi comes before the bracha of berminei mezonos. V'afal pi shehasheni is choshuv eichaviv alav. So says Mishnah Berurah Chavtes Kagain shahalechem misa'orim. It could be that the bread in front of you is from barley. V'hamazonos michitim, and therefore it's nicer, it's more chaviv or more choshuv to you. Still, the bracha of hamoitzi takes precedence. V'hu adin. If the second thing be'etzem intrinsically is more chashuv than the first, still the brach of hamoitzi comes first. Or it's more chaviv to you. Rotzolema says Mishnah Berurah in Sivkot and Lamed, shebe'emes ein chashuv yosim harishon is not intrinsically more chashuv. Ach be'einav hu chaviv yoser. You just like this more. Or pasha du adinim hu chaviv v'chashuv b'yachad. And certainly, if it's both intrinsically more chashuv and it's more chaviv for you, you should still the bracha of hamoitzi comes first. Okay, now back to the Ramah. Third line towards the end of the line. V'chol had amrinan de'echad kodim lechaveirei. And everything we've said till now, that one comes before the other one. Hainu she'reit telechol mishnehem. That's when you want to have both. So you're going to have some mazonos, you're going to have, let's say, some pasta, and you're going to have some bread. So the rule is you make hamoitzi beforehand. Or the example the Mishnah Berurah gave, you're going to have some hamoitzi, and then you're going to have some cakes which you would require a mazonos during the meal. You make the hamoitzi first. But that's talking about a case where reit selechol shneim, I want to eat both. Lochein yesh lahakdim achav ve'choshev, and therefore that comes first. But if you didn't want to eat both, you only have to make a bracha on that which you want to eat. You're not forced to eat something you don't need to. even though the second item is there in front of you. This is all, of course, lechatchila. For some reason, you messed up and you made a bracha on the second item. If the brachas is equal, then b'diavad you are yotze ve'ein tzarich lachzav v'levarich al zeh shehoyle lahakdim. And although you should have made a bracha on the one item first, you don't have to repeat the bracha. Ubelvad sheyedaita gamkein olav b'brachos, as long as you had it in mind, you are mitzi, for your yotze on the second item. Okay, let's do the Mishnah Berurah. Lamed Aleph. Im ein reitzeh. Even if you do want to eat both of them, the second item wasn't brought to you. You don't have to wait for that. You can just make a bracha and eat the first item. Ubelvad, says Mishnah in Lamed Beis, even if both of them were in front of you at the time of the bracha, you should really have in mind explicitly to pater that second item. You can only really be mitzi the less choshev item if you had it in mind explicitly b'kavona. But on the other hand, if you make a bracha on the more choshev, then even if you didn't explicitly have in mind the less choshev, memela is going to be included. Because lemaisa, it was out on the table in front of you. Now, if they bring, let's say the first food that you made a bracha on has now finished, and they bring out more, then you've got to make a new bracha on that. But if they bring out more, but there was still a bit left on the table, then yesh deis v'poiskim. There's a debate about that. V'sofik brachas lahakel v'chol zeh mevu b'siman reish vav ayin sham b'achronim mishbur sif cotton chaf beis. U'lachatchila mevu sham b'ramod yesh lizor lekaven liftor es asher yaviu la'achkach. The best thing to do is to have in mind that this bracha will cover anything which they are going to bring for you. Okay, Lamed Gimel. This is going on the very end of the Ramah. That's ubevad daita gamkein olav b'birchosos, so long as you have it in mind. Now, says the Mishnah Berurah Lamed Gimel, v'im hoya munach lefon of estrog v'zayis. In those days, they would eat estrogim. The Gemara talks about it, but even the Mishnah Berurah seems to say they would. You've got in front of you an estrog and a zayis, so they're both bariproids. After estrog hoya chovel of yoseh, and you prefer eating the estrog. Kaimelon le'el b'sif aleph. We said in the beginning of this simon, the mevarich ala zayis shum min shiva. You should really make a bracha on the zayis because it's shivas haminim. That was the machlekas, and we pass on Rabbi Yehuda. The Mechaber said, "V'nifta memela af b'stoma be'esrog," and therefore that would automatically cover the esrog. V'meberich ala esrog b'stoma. But if you picked up the esrog because you wanted it more, and you made a bar parades on it b'stoma, lo nifta hazayis, because the zayis is more choshev because it's earlier in the pasuk, and therefore it would not include the zayis. There are those who side with the Rambam, Hamuvasham b'sif beis, which we said in sif beis, the Chaviv Aflagav min shiva, that the Rambam paskins that Chaviv trumps shivas haminim. Yes, you should have gone for the zayis first, like the der rishona shehistome v'levarch al zayis mikol makom b'diavad sheberch al chaviv. But nonetheless, if you prefer the esrog and you made that bracha kadas harambam v'siyota, like the opinion of the Rambam, lecher b'vada leyachs v'varch al zayis. Therefore, in that situation, you would not have to make a new bracha on the zayis. The l'shitos mi bracha levatala, because according to the Rambam, that's a bracha levatala. For kvar kosav shamataz the man David Karambam gam kein shapir ovid, and therefore, if you did do like the Rambam, because it says the Taz, then it's okay. The Yosef nearly, and it appears more to me, says the Mishnah Berurah, that afilu im mevarch al zayis, even if he did make a bracha on the zayis, which is what the following sif aleph, toiv sheichavim behedjed lifte gam esrog. The best thing to do is to make a bracha on the zayis and have in mind the esrog as well. Because you've got a bit of a problem, because the esrog is more chaviv to you, and therefore having in mind to do the zayis, follow sif aleph, the shit of the mechaber, and make the bracha on the zayis and have in mind the esrog. Because unless you have it in mind explicitly, you're not going to be yetzer on the esrog according to the Rambam. V'chein kol ki agav l'chayheich sheyesh deis b'poiskim. Whenever there is some sort of debate in the poiskim, alei zedovi v'arch b'tchila, yezoi b'shas bracha l'chav v'nifta l'shneim. Just have in mind when you make the bracha to exempt them, and then you're covered. The lav hochi yesh chashash to'echel min hasheni b'lei bracha, because otherwise there could be a chashash that the second item is being eaten without a bracha because that first bracha didn't cover it. Okay, say that we'll leave it there.
What